Hello, and welcome to a sketchbook tour. If you're new here, my name is Kristen. I go by Little Tiny Egg on the internet. I am a painter and illustrator. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I love sketchbooks. They are a big part of my art practice, and yeah, I want to show you what's inside this sketchbook. This was kind of like a travel sketchbook for me. I took it a lot of different places. I took it on a lot of different trips throughout the American West and to Spain and to Mexico, and hopefully it inspires your sketchbook practice and just makes you excited to make art. So yeah, this is a Art Creations sketchbook. I love these sketchbooks. I've used several of them at this point, but this is the smallest one that I've used. I ended up really liking this size. It's about the same size as my iPhone, and I can just tuck it into my bag along with a couple pens or my little travel watercolor palette, and it travels really well. It fits in like my bike bag, it fits in my baggie, it fits in my pocket. Yeah, I just find this size really comfortable to work in. I feel like my sketchbook is kind of like my travel art studio, and having it be small and compact makes me just use it more. I love these sketchbooks because they are inexpensive and they have a lot of pages. The paper is thick enough to paint on and they're cheap. I think this one was like $5 or $6 at the time that I bought it. And I have these little rock stickers that are from my friends at the Lichen Collective, and then this little horse sticker that is one of mine. Okay, let's just get started. On this first page, I have some just doodles and my name, and I wrote this kind of cheesy thing that I kind of cringe at now, but it says, "This sketchbook is pretty. It'll be even prettier once it's used and filled with mistakes, experiments, and accidental masterpieces." Yeah, this is kind of my mentality around sketchbooking. Like, I want things to look nice. That's like my goal when I start a sketch, is that I want it to look good. But sometimes things are ugly and sometimes things are accidentally really good, and I feel like I'm never really in control of whether something turns out good or not, and especially in a sketchbook, I like to leave room for ugly things and mistakes and pages of swatches and stuff, which is what this is. I think I did this with just a ballpoint pen. There's just some little flowers, a fish, and just some like motifs that I find myself reaching for. Skipped this little glued together page. I started this sketchbook in April of 2024, and I think I finished it in February of 2025, so took me about a year to fill it up. That's pretty standard for me. Here are some line drawings of just some tundra swans and some little doodles of guys. This turned into a sticker, just like playing around with a concept that I had of like a bird noticer. And here's a little swatch sheet of some of the Caran d'Ache neocolors that I have, and just some little doodles with those. I got a little collage kit at a local art market and did some little collage-y things in here, and some more Caran d'Ache doodles from just a picture that I took of some flowers in my neighborhood. Here's some ballpoint pen drawings of some little narcissus, but I love all the different shapes that I was able to pull out. I think of myself as more of a painter, but when I do a drawing like this, I feel like it helps me understand little shapes and things. This looks like it's watercolor with a neocolor on top. Some more collage and ballpoint pen drawings. Around this time, I was really into making these super detailed paintings of images of the ground, and these line drawings are kind of like preparatory sketches for that, just like sorting out the complexity of a little scene, like all the little grasses and all the values and details and shapes and things. Here are some irises. I love how I can tell what time of year this was by the flowers that I was drawing. Like obviously this is springtime, and I think this iris was done with some liquid charcoal, which is a really fun medium that I like using. This ended up being the May spread in my calendar this year. This is actually drawn from a photo of myself as a child. I'll see if I can find the photo. It doesn't really look like me, but it's kind of fun to draw from old photos. I think I was visiting my parents, so I was looking at old photo albums, and I was just taking notes of like some shows that I had been watching and books that I've been reading. And this is like a fish candle holder that I saw. I went to the Crocker Art Museum, which is in Sacramento, and did some like quick little sketches while I was there. I really like this method for doing quick sketches. It's just like a light colored Tombow brush pen and then a black brush pen on top. I kind of do a loose sketch in the light colored Tombow and then find the more refined details with the black pen. And these are just some objects and artifacts at the museum. Drawing of a little lupine and a self-portrait. This is done with just a pen and some Neocolor in the background. Drawing yourself is really hard. I feel like I never quite capture my likeness. It's close though. This one's pretty close. Here are some more of that rose-colored pink pen and some Neocolors. My shoes. I took a picture of my shoes in the mirror with these like frilly socks and just an outfit drawing of my friend that I really liked. One of my best friends moved to Barcelona recently and I went and visited her and I loved it so much. I have a whole vlog about Spain and my travel sketching supplies that I took there, but this is the view from her apartment. Barcelona is such a cool city and I loved looking at all the different little things that people had, like the laundry and little air conditioning units, and I have such a vivid memory of sitting on the porch in the sun and drawing this, and I don't think I would have such a clear memory if I didn't sit there and take the time to make this drawing. And then here's some more drawings of people that I saw in Barcelona. This guy had this shirt that I thought was funny, and I stuck in this little tag from the Joan Miró Museum, which I thought was one of the coolest museums that we went to in Barcelona. And these little brush pen drawings were done from a little overlook where you could see down into the bay and one of these little cruise ships and these big plants that were sticking up. These are little emblems from inside of La Sagrada Familia, which is a really famous church, a Gaudi designed church. I don't know that much about religion. This is Luke and Joan, right? So they're like these crazy representations of the four disciples. Is that something? I'm so sorry to the Catholics. I don't know. This is a study of a close-up of one of the horses on the outside. I was really, really inspired by the shapes and the way that they represented things on the outside of the church. So I tried to capture some of that like QB vibe here. We did a little weekend trip up to the Pyrenees, and this is a drawing of one of the peaks. We were in this national park called Aiguastortes, I think that's how you say it. It was really beautiful, and I got these neon pastels in a stationery store in Barcelona. Another view of the mountains. We hiked up to this really cool refuge, and there's a lake up there. We stayed at this little refuge up in the mountains with a bunch of other hikers, and it was a really cool experience. Same thing as the other sketch. I don't think I would have such a clear memory of sitting on the edge of this dam where I drew this from if I didn't do this drawing. Then we went to the Muji store, very exciting. I do not have a Muji store where I live, so these are all the little stamps that they have. And here's just like a random swatch page of all the materials and things that I had brought with me, probably done in a cafe while I was extremely jet lagged. And then this is from the Picasso Museum. There was this room that really made a big impact on me. He did a bunch of the same painting over and over and over again with this little Madonna holding this egg and this dog, and yeah, I just kind of copied it and did it with the Neocolors, and I really like how it looks. It's so goofy and silly. But yeah, I was really inspired by that room because it just showed the power of like iterating and making the same thing over and over again and gave you a little glimpse into how his mind worked. I loved that room. And then here are some more Picasso animals. I really like this dog. These are kind of like my interpretations, but they're also kind of direct copies. Like if you've seen those Picasso paintings, these dogs are so funny and full of character and just like, why does his face look like that? And there was like this painting of all these pigeons. I'm really glad that I did these little studies. And then here we were sitting in a little park and I did this line drawing of this little castle and then colored it in later with watercolor. This guy was playing this really cool instrument. It's a bolon. He was from Guinea, and we talked to him for a little bit. We were kind of hiding in the rain. You can see that my pen got a little wet, but it's all part of the vibe. Here's some more museum tickets and a drawing that I did of La Sagrada Familia. The church has been under construction for years and years and years, and I kind of wanted to capture like the state that it was in. If I ever go back, I think it'd be really cool to do another drawing of like where the cranes are and if they've made any progress. It feels like they're just always going to be working on it. Yeah, I have just such a vivid memory of standing in this little plaza and doing this drawing while my friends drank coffee. I'm not super drawn to architectural subjects, but whenever I do draw them, I really enjoy myself and I really enjoy the finished product. Here's some little sardines and fish from a little market that we were at. I ended up turning this into a sticker sheet that's like a staple of my online shop at this point. And then this is when I got home from Spain, went to the botanical gardens with my friend Sophie and did these little sketches of some plants and a waterfall that was there. This is a little tapestry that I saw while I was in Spain, and these are just like some little elements that were from my camera roll, things that I didn't want to forget. Yeah, I feel like it's really helpful to do little studies of motifs and stuff like this because they kind of incorporate into your visual language and you can pull them out, whether from just memory or looking back into your sketchbook. Here's some ducks and some drawings of fish done with colored pencil and pen. Some little fruits and a pastel drawing from the park near my house. There's like these little pedal boats. Here's a study of one of the little pedal boats and just some watercolor doodles. This is from a hike that I did with my friend up to Albion Basin, which is at a ski resort near where I live. And this is a little fireweed. I ended up developing this further into a bigger painting. I love doing a little color study like this. You can kind of map out the little different areas that I want to explore. I ended up doing this on like a bigger 8x10 piece of paper. And yeah, I'm glad I did this little color study before I started though. This is from when my friend Max was visiting me. We sat in this little cafe and drew these bikes while we had a conversation. And I remember so vividly what we were talking about while I drew all this stuff. Here's Max sitting by the creek. It doesn't look like him, but that's okay. Here's Max again sitting in this coffee shop. I really enjoyed just sitting there and chatting and doing this little drawing of all the different things around us. I think I used one of Max's watercolors. He had just some like Payne's gray in a little Altoids container. And then we went on a little hike and I did a study of this plant, some little doodles, and a drawing of this scene from where we were sitting. And then another architectural drawing. My friend Max is an architect, and he draws a lot of cityscapes and buildings and things, and it was really inspiring me watching him draw this building. This is the Guthrie. This is actually where my art studio is. My studio is on this side over here. Yeah, it's a really cool old building. There's like a gallery and a pizza shop downstairs, and then the top 2 floors are artist studios. It used to be an old boarding house. Yeah, it was really fun to see how me and Max both drew the building differently in our own ways. Here's some tattoo flash inspired drawings that I did, pretty sure while I was waiting for a doctor's appointment, just looking at images on Pinterest. These are not my original ideas, but I did just want to kind of capture them and put them down in my sketchbook. I do think it can be kind of beneficial to do a study of a drawing that you really like and see how it was constructed. This is kind of a random page I forgot about. I think I did like a portrait here and covered it up with this sticker. And then a friend and I went on a trip to Colorado, and there was these big bluffs behind where we were staying, and I wanted to sit down and capture the shapes of the rocks and things. I really like how I used negative space here. It's kind of fun to limit yourself to just a black pen and see what you can accomplish. Like there's all this complicated foliage down here, but I left it kind of up to the imagination and did these little negative space drawings. Little red rock butte with some prickly pears near where we were. This is back in Utah, later in the summer. Different plants are blooming, and I really like the vibe of this pen drawing with this neocolor on top, just for the sky. All of a sudden it's October, and these are some gouache paintings, just little studies that I did. This ended up turning into a larger painting as well. Here's a little gouache study that I did on a hike. Whenever I do a study outside, I feel like it's so rushed and loose, but that's kind of what you want, especially it's just such a small canvas, and I'm usually on a hike with somebody else, so they don't have so much time for me to sit there and do a full plein air painting, but I can kind of get colors and shapes and values down, which I think is fun, and I know exactly where this is. I remember sitting there very vividly. And then shortly after this, I took a little desert road trip with my parents down to Bryce Canyon, and this was done at a little lookout spot called Fairyland. This was done with that same like pink fine liner and then just a Tombow brush pen, and I broke up the page into these little smaller compositions, which is kind of a fun thing to do. And I wrote down the little hikes that we did, which is always kind of nice to remember. And then I did this little pencil sketch while we were on another different hike. I wanted to kind of capture all the different geologic layers and was kind of thinking about the geology diagrams and stuff from like my science textbooks in school. And I wrote eddies of time because I was thinking about like just how much time all of this stuff took to get built up and these little water streaks and things. I love the desert. I love looking at rocks. So this is fun to draw for me. And then this is like a little gouache study from the same hike. Yeah, I ended up turning this into a sticker for my Patreon. This is a gouache painting of the view from the Grand Canyon. We went to a couple different national parks and sat on the edge of the Grand Canyon for a while looking down into just the craziness. The Grand Canyon is so cool. I love it there. Here's another view from the Grand Canyon. We were sitting at like the visitor center at sunset, kind of watching the light change, and it was just so fun to sit there with my sketchbook and paint while we all just like drank beer and talked to random people. And I used to be really scared of sketching in public. I feel like there's a lot of fear around it because things don't look good until the very end, but people are always so interested and kind of amazed and impressed that you're not just sitting there looking at your phone. And it's like just fun to talk to people about it. Yeah, I remember having several different conversations about like my supplies and things and how I was approaching the painting with people that were there. And then here I did this color pencil drawing and then added color with watercolor later of this lookout at Cedar Breaks. And then I ended up doing just writing down everything that we did on the trip and like what day we went and which hikes we did and things. If I ever go on a similar trip or people ask me for recommendations, I can tell them what we did and where we went and places that we ate and stuff. And then this is back in Salt Lake. We have this really cool Turkish coffee shop. These are some little motifs from little ceramic plates and things that they have in there. The blue is Posca pen. I think the red is Posca pen. And then the lighter blue is like a Tombow brush pen. Another little gouache study that I did on a hike. These are done with the red Posca pen and then colored in with the Neo colors. I was in a real phase with the Neo colors. I think I did all of these pages kind of in one sitting with the red Posca pen and then chose a couple Neo colors to add some accents to. Really big fan of that guy. I love sitting down and just doodling and filling several pages all at once. It's so nice once you get into a groove. You just like don't want to stop. Here is like a half-finished drawing of my shoe rack at my house. I wrote, I have therapy in 20 minutes. I'm leaving for a trip on Monday, moving apartments when I get back. I'm feeling in between. I definitely leave things unfinished sometimes. Not everything has to be a finished thing. Here's a little collage that I did. I think a friend had a collage night get together. And then I put some little elements in my sketchbook. Here we get to a little Mexico section. I went to Mexico with my friends last fall and I actually ended up leaving my sketchbook in Mexico. There's a whole saga if you watch my vlogs. I left the sketchbook in Mexico and didn't get it back until like February, but we were in Akumal in December and I did this little watercolor study of the beach and this shell. Some more watercolor and gouache sandpipers and grackles and a little beach scene. Some more beach scene watercolor and some little rocks or little lichen-colored stones, lichen-covered stones. Looking for patterns. An iguana. He's pretty cute. This is from Tulum. There's these really cool ruins there. And this little guy's from the Temple of the Descending God, done in watercolor. And then I wrote down this little itinerary and did this little doodle at the bottom. Yeah, so December 7th was the last time I wrote, and then February 2025, I got my sketchbook back. So now we kind of jumped ahead to February and I did these little swans that ended up turning into a sticker. This is a drawing of an image that I saw on the internet. I've seen it on Pinterest a couple times, but someone posted it on Instagram. It's just this girl with this sad bunny and I felt like I needed to draw her. And some little snowdrops. And then this is my friend Joe sitting in his living room working. Some ideas for a Valentine's Day card. Very inspired by Shaggy, the artist. I forget her real name, but I'll post her Instagram here. Then I did this little gouache and watercolor study of a picture that I took while I was skiing and some little elements. I'm pretty sure this is inspired by a rug that I saw or some textile that I saw. And this turned into a postcard. Drawing of the dog that I dog sit a lot, Penny, sitting on my couch. I really love this drawing and just some little doodly flowers. Some kind of folk art, textile inspired stuff, and this tree that I saw on a walk. Every once in a while I like to do a portrait just to remind myself that I can do them, and this I think is supposed to be Saoirse Ronan? Is that her name? Saoirse Ronan? It doesn't look like her at all, but yeah, it's fun to do a portrait every once in a while, and then I did some swatches of the colors that I used. I like the shadows on her neck. I don't paint portraits very often. Here's Joe and Penny. I wrote Penny needs a lot of attention. Oh, I came across this really cool art project by this artist named Emma Carlo. She did 365 days of whistling. She made all these ceramic whistles. They're so cool to look at. You should definitely check them out. I'll leave it in the description. But these are some of her whistles that she did. I just love the shapes of them. Some little doodles and gouache and pencil. This is kind of funny. I don't remember doing these, but they're kind of recent. Little playing card. Was inspired by some playing cards that I was seeing on Pinterest and thinking about what a matchbook could look like if I made one. Okay, and then this is the end. This is a pretty bad self-portrait of me eating a piece of pizza. And yeah, some just little doodles. And then I always just like stick random things in the back. But yeah, that's the whole thing. I love these little sketchbooks. They are like a little jewel to me once they are finished. And yeah, I always have to remind myself when I start a new one, they're so nice and pretty when they're blank, but they are so much more satisfying when they're filled up. You should not be afraid of making a mess in your sketchbook and filling up blank pages with just whatever comes to mind and things from your life and things from your camera roll, things that you see. And yeah, I love the practice of taking my sketchbook everywhere with me, especially if I'm traveling. It's just such a nice way to keep your memories. But yeah, that's it. I hope that you enjoyed this sketchbook tour. If you want to see sketches from me more frequently, I post monthly scans on my Patreon of everything that I make. I don't always post everything on social media, but I post mostly everything on Patreon. So if you want to join me over there, there's like a $3 tier that gets you behind the scenes access. And then I have a sticker and a postcard tier as well. And yeah, if you like this video, if you like my art, you should subscribe and hang out with us. I think we have a fun vibe. And if you watch the whole thing and you love sketchbook tours, you should leave a comment. Tell me what you're struggling with in your sketchbook and maybe we can kind of crowdsource your problems. Do you have problems? I don't know. Anyway, I will see you in the next video. I hope you are doing so well and I'll talk to you very soon. Bye.